panga mtunzi tiende pamozi tonse a Zambia mtima umozi chikondi chatu palibe kusiyana ndife amozi tieni tipange ziko latu.
Good evening, Zambia. Africa and the continent-wide diaspora currently debating whether load shedding is a spiritual test or just a technical failure with extra steps. Tonight's episode of the Zambian Files brings us a plot twist with the potential to change the entire storyline. Yesterday, we were roasting President Hakainde Hichilema for visiting dictators. Today, we have a different story, and we are not roasting him today, but complimenting him. President Hakainde Hichilema is now hosting billionaires the way other leaders host gods during village tours. And not just any billionaire, Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, the man whose net worth is so high that his calculator has trust issues. Barely days after hosting the president of Israel, signing deals, smiling for cameras, and reminding the world that Zambia is open for business, State House has now welcomed Dangote, the mogul whose business empire stretches from cement to fertilizer to refineries to sectors you didn't even know existed. For Zambia, this is like the Marvel Cinematic Universe crossover episode. First, the Israeli president, now Dangote, and who knows, maybe Jeff Bezos will pop in next week for tea and fritters. But let's get serious for a moment, because Dangote didn't just come to admire the fresh State House paint or compliment HH's famously crisp suits. No, he came with a message. Zambia, you've got coal, and is ready to help turn those black rocks into black gold.
Without power, there's no growth. No growth without power anywhere. And then when you have power, you will actually unleash growth in the country. When you do that, you talk less when you go out there to campaign, to tell people what you've done, because they will see what it is. They will actually feel it. It's not like education where it takes several years before you can see the benefit of it. But this one, once you give power, it gives other things, opportunities, GDP growth, and it will give a lot of disposable income, just like what you mentioned, Your Excellency, saying that, yes, today in Zambia, you are using rain-fed agriculture. So rain-fed agriculture, it means that you are going to do one season. But right now you go to countries where they are doing 3 crops per season. So if you are going to do 3 crops, it means that something like maize, which you are good at, you'll actually flood the entire African continent with maize. So, but right now, a lot of people, they're importing, maize, African countries. And one of the things that I have to also say, Your Excellency, is that being a landlocked, for example, is actually a big opportunity for you, because you are
at a time when the nation is enduring load shedding hours long enough to qualify as part-time employment, Dangote arrives with exactly the script HH has been trying to pitch: industrialization, investment, and energy stability. Dangote didn't mince his words. You cannot grow your economy in the dark, he told President Hichilema, as if summarizing Zambia's entire frustration in one sentence. He spoke about reliable power, growing GDP, reviving maize cultivation, and transforming Zambia's raw materials, especially copper, before they leave the country. In other words, he basically said, stop exporting wealth. Process it here, create jobs here, keep the money here. Something Zambians have been shouting for decades, except Dangote said it with the polite confidence of a man who can buy 3 provinces before lunch. President Hichilema Ever the businessman-in-chief understood the assignment immediately. This meeting wasn't just a courtesy handshake, it was a strategic alignment. HH emphasized Africa's need to own its development, not outsource it. And in a continent where leaders often wait for foreign aid like a student waiting for exam leakages, HH's stance is refreshing and very on-brand for someone who sees economics the way Messi sees football. The president highlighted the painful truth. Zambia's electricity deficit is strangling the economy. Production slows down, factories run on diesel, households schedule their emotions around power cuts, and farmers, especially maize growers, are now learning the hard way that drought plus weak energy supply equals begging your neighbor for mealie meal. The lights must come back on consistently if Zambia is to grow beyond slogans. And that's where Dangote's proposal becomes the real headline. Harnessing Zambia's coal deposits, strengthening the energy sector, building value addition industries, creating jobs and wealth inside Zambia instead of shipping it out. This isn't charity, it's opportunity, investment and mutual benefit. Dangote expands his empire and Zambia expands its GDP. Finally, a relationship that doesn't feel like colonialism 2.0. China, are you in the room? The visit also confirmed something many analysts have been quietly observing. HH is building Zambia's future using boardroom diplomacy instead of motorcades and military parades. From Israel's investment overtures to Dangote's industrial vision, there is a clear pattern. Zambia is positioning itself as an economic hub, not a spectator in Africa's growth narrative. And that's the beauty of democracy. You stop thinking about punishing your opponent and start thinking about developing your country. And let's not forget the finishing touch. Infrastructure Minister Charles Milupi announcing Zambia's partnership with Dangote on the Copperbelt concrete road. Not only will it be built, but it will become the model for future concrete roads across the nation. For once, a road project in Africa might be famous for something other than corruption, scandals and potholes. So tonight, as Zambians charge their phones during the 2-hour window of electricity that feels like a blessing, it's worth pausing to appreciate what's happening. The investment train is moving, the billionaire gets are arriving, and the future, for once, looks like it's loading in high definition. Zambia's story is changing, and if these deals materialize the way they should, the days of candlelit dinner because there is no power might finally become a romantic choice instead of a national default. This is the Zambian Files. Please subscribe, share, and comment.